Hi everyone, I'm Leanne and today we're gonna have a chat. So whenever I sit down to film a video, I have no real plan of what I'm gonna say. Like obviously if I'm talking about particular books, I have picked those books off my shelves and I have kind of an idea of what I might want to say, but I'm not someone that, has like a proper script or a list of like bullet points of things that they want to get to. I very much just kind of, and hope for the best. But it felt like for this chat, I should have probably prepared and thought about some of the things that I wanted to say. I haven't done that. But what I did want to talk about today is the fact that I have been making booktube videos for 10 years. I've been putting off sitting down to have this chat with you for quite a while because I just didn't really know how to properly reflect on that as a milestone. And there are so many amazing booktubers who are also hitting the 10-year anniversary, 10-year birthday mark this year. And so many of those creators, I remember us all kind of starting our channels at the same time. And I think I've been seeing a lot of that kind of 10-year celebration content a lot recently. And it's simultaneously made me feel lovely and warm and fuzzy inside. And also kind of made me want to be sick in my mouth a little bit. I just don't really know how to process the fact that I've been doing this for 10 years. The idea of right now making a commitment to create lots of kind of 10th anniversary content is slightly overwhelming to me, but I do have lots of ideas for videos that I do want to make. So, reflecting on, 10 books over 10 years. So picking a book for each of the years that I've been on BookTube and reflecting on why that was so important to me in my reading journey. I have lots of photos of my bookshelves over the years, so I thought it would be cool to look back on the different iterations of storing my books that I've had. I'd love to look back on a lot of the data I have around my reading for the past 10 years. I'm someone that loves diving into data, is very data driven. So I would love to look back on some of the big stats around my reading and also my book purchasing and reflecting on this decade. I think it would be interesting to talk about how having a booktube channel has intersected with my career working in publishing. There is a lot of content that I'd like to make and I don't make any promises for some of it, but also if there is any additional things that you'd love to see me talk about in relation to this 10 years on booktube or 10 years of my reading being, recorded, please do leave any suggestions down below. And if there is appetite for it, I will do a Q&A as well. So if you'd like to drop a question down below in the comments or send me one on my Bookstagram account, which is linked in the description of all of my videos. If there's enough appetite for a Q&A, I will definitely do one. There are a few things that I want to talk about now, and maybe that will answer some of the questions that you have. Maybe it will prompt another question, I don't know. So I think one of the best ways for me to start reflecting on this is to think about where it all kind of started. So when I was in the latter years of high school, maybe from the ages of 16 to 18, I got quite into watching a lot of British and Irish YouTubers. So not booktubers specifically, YouTubers more generally. And I suppose some of them had books as an aspect of their channel, even if it wasn't the entire focus. When I was 18, I moved from Ireland to Wales. I started at university, and I suppose that was a bit of a period to kind of reinvent myself. I suppose lots of people have that experience when they go off to university. They're not with the people that have known them for years before and have preconceptions. I think if I had started making YouTube videos when I was in secondary school, it just would have been deeply embarrassing. And if I'm being honest, that feeling of having a YouTube channel being a bit of a secret is something that I've never fully gotten away from, mentally, which is wild because I feel like content creators are now the cool kids. Whereas when I first started making videos and was thinking about making videos, it was deeply uncool. But originally I started to think about doing videos with one of my friends, and we didn't have really any clue what we wanted the channel to be. And eventually I kind of realized I think this is something that I actually need to do on my own, and I had no clue what I could possibly talk about. But I was doing an English literature and creative writing degree and I loved books, so I figured let's just talk about the thing that I really love, and that is reading. But my first video wasn't a booktube video. I suppose it was more of a study tube video. I did a video where I was giving advice for studying English as part of the Leaving Cert. And then I think I also did one for religion and history, because they were the subjects that I'd got A's in for my Leaving Cert. If you don't know, the Leaving Cert are like the big state exams that you do when you're 18 in Ireland. So they were some of the first videos that I've made. I've actually made them like unlisted or like private now. One, because like they're so badly made. And I am such a different person, and we'll come on to talking about that in a bigger way as well. But I also just feel like the curriculum's probably changed so much that those videos aren't really relevant anymore. They were like very highly watched, particularly like the English one, but I just don't feel like they're particularly relevant anymore. But after I'd made my first couple of proper like booktube videos, I discovered this whole community. And actually I didn't know that booktube was a community. Like, as I said, I watched YouTubers who sometimes spoke about books, but I didn't understand the vastness of the booktube community. And I suppose, yeah, from that moment I was part of this community. And I remember discovering the channels of other people who were starting around the same time as me. And it's amazing that some of those people are now really great friends, whether they make YouTube videos now or they've stopped. I've made so many amazing friends through this platform. Something that I've mentioned in a few videos over the years is the fact that I suppose the growth of this channel has been really quite slow compared to the number of years that I've been doing it. The growth of my channel really kind of stagnated a few years ago. And whilst I've sometimes felt dissatisfied or disappointed because of that, it is something that has ultimately like always sat with me. I think the growth of someone's channel is often reflective of, you know, the work and the creativity and the ideas that they pour into it. And there came a point where I just knew that I couldn't pour as much into this channel as I would need to in order to be able to grow it. Like, coming up with really fantastic creative ideas, executing those ideas well, even just having the consistency to show up on a regular basis, being able to, you know, promote videos. I've just not really poured myself into it in that kind of way. And I think there was a real point for me, and I'll talk about this more when I do a video around how having a YouTube channel has impacted like my publishing career. There was definitely a real point where I was kind of deciding whether I would double down on this or double down on the career, and I chose the latter. There are lots of things that I want to talk about in relation to that, so I will save it for another video. But I think once I realized that I didn't want to do like the influencer thing, my perspective on this channel shifted to it being a diary. And even though I've already yapped for about 15 minutes, I'm now only really just getting to the crux of what I want to talk about when reflecting on this decade. Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact like date when I started, but I would have either been 19 or 20. I am now 29, turning 30 in December. So this booktube channel, this relationship that I have had, is like the longest relationship I've had with anyone that didn't give birth to me. This channel has outlasted, you know, romantic relationships and, you know, friendships. It has been here for the entire decade. You know, it has been here for the entirety of my 20s. I think it has seen me through 9 different homes. It saw me through, you know, being at university as an undergraduate, doing my master's, moving to London for the first time, leaving London because of a global pandemic, returning to London, and all of the kind of progress that I've had throughout my publishing career during that time. Sometimes I've mentioned on the channel, you know, what I may have had going on in like my professional or personal life. Sometimes I've kept those things private. But even when I haven't been, you know, outrightly talking about some of the stuff that's going on in my personal life, when I watch certain videos back, I know what was going on. And to have this record of essentially, you know, me growing up is really, really cool. And I'm really grateful for it. And I'm really grateful to myself for not stopping. And whilst the videos I've created are book recommendations and little reviews of, you know, what I've been reading in a particular month, or these big haul videos that chronicle my book buying addiction, you know, they're the vehicle of the videos. You know, they're, you know, the things that motivated me to sit down and talk, was having this subject matter to talk about that I'm so passionate about and is so interwoven with my life. But really, what each of those videos about books enabled me to do was to create this archive of some of my 20s. There are times when I've thought about, you know, is this the time to stop making videos? You know, books consume so much of my life. Is it really that healthy to have another hobby that's so woven in with books? Could I be using those hours elsewhere for, you know, there's lots of other things that I want to do, and, you know, I tell myself I don't have the time to do them, but then I have time to, you know, create videos. The truth is, I'm not sure I know how not to make videos. I know it means so much to me now to be able to look back on some of the stuff that I made when I was in my early 20s. I know how much it means to me to have that to look back on, and I don't want to rob my 40-year-old self of having that experience watching this back. This archive that I've got, that I'm able to look back on, just means so much to me. And there are like weird things that come from it as well. Like when I was dating, I found it really weird that like if someone found my booktube channel, they had access to like so much of my history, and there was this weird kind of power imbalance that I knew was happening sometimes when someone had watched my videos and they were finding out information about me that I hadn't told them. Like that was really weird. And I suppose that's the flip side of having this archive, is that like there is a version of me on the internet that no longer represents me. I have changed so much over this decade, as I'm sure everyone does in every decade of their life. But I do think like from your 20s to your 30s is such a formative time, and it's such a time of change. Like I really do reflect on some of those videos and I'm like, oh, I don't know who she is. Oh, she's like just a baby. Like she had no clue. And I am anticipating, you know, the next few years of my life will be full of lots of, I think, really positive changes to my life. And I think it would be cool from a 40-year-old self to be able to look back on this and also think that she was a little baby. I don't think I have any sort of conclusion to talking about this, and we will continue to talk about it in, you know, future videos to celebrate this decade of being on booktube. But I think because the channel is so inextricably linked with a decade of my life, with the entirety of my 20s, it's quite an overwhelming thing to reflect on and think about, and I wanted to share that with you guys because you are the ones who have been, you know, watching and listening this whole time. So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it there. If you have any questions for me, whether they fit into the Q&A or whether there's something I can incorporate into another video where I'm reflecting on this decade, please do leave me questions down below in the comments, or as I said, do reach out on my Bookstagram account. And just thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. I hope you're having a good day, and I'll speak to you in my next video.